Good morning, good evening, everyone. This is Luda Kopikina with GAI Insights. Welcome to Daily AI News Review, where we mark articles essential, important, and optional, saving you time in your busy day. Today, we have Paul, Amanda, and Ankash on our regular crew, and Alden De Rosario is joining us as a special guest. He is the CEO of Custom GPT. Alden, do you want to talk a little bit about your company and what's happening?
Oh, thanks for having me, Luda. Yes, my company has provided a platform by which anybody can build a custom GPT with their own data and do this using no code platform. So you don't need developers, business users can use it.
Okay, thank you, Alden. And he was just telling me that it seems like the impact from those developments is starting to show quite strongly in the marketplace. So this is great. All right, let's start with the first article. Ankash, please.
Sure, Luda. So the first one comes from artificial analysis, and it talks about the state of AI in China.
Yeah, lots of data and it's all visual. What did you think about this, Alden?
So I marked this as essential, right? And I marked this as essential because this is one of those reports that tends to go viral and covers a lot of good data on China. Uh, you would have seen this recent Mary Micker report that also talks about like the state of AI, and this is the similar type of report. It didn't have anything spectacular that we might have not known as such, but it just gives you a good landscape of like what's happening in China, how fast they are catching up, and you know, for somebody who is following investing in the US landscape, it could be a must read.
Thank you, Alden. Essential from Alden. Amanda, what did you think?
Yeah, I think it's important article. As Dr. John said yesterday, it takes a lot for me to say essential. I almost never say essential. But this is definitely important. One of the do I want to say slides or pieces to this is about OpenAI no longer in a dominant position. So it's slide 7. So I mean, just little tidbits like that where it's kind of saying, I feel like we're very comfortable in the position. I know for me, I still, I mean, I use ChatGPT for everything pretty much when I'm using some sort of chat, you know what I mean? So I thought that was interesting. So yeah, I'm important on this one.
Okay. Paul, where did you land?
I'm on essential. I mean, I think this is really important to understand that China's models are nearly at parity with OpenAI. I think we Americans continue to be too centric in our own navel, and it was years ago I had an opportunity to live in Japan for a year, and half of Japanese news on the front page is about U.S. because that's where the trade is, and the U.S. Executives and people in my experience don't understand this. I think the other really thing important about China is that China is really investing in their electrical infrastructure way faster than we are. So from a capacity standpoint, if you believe the intelligence is going to be gated by how quickly you get these mega data centers and energy, China, per some experts, are ahead, and that needs to be watched. So essential.
Okay. We're going essential. Ankash, agree?
Yes, Luda, essential for me.
Okay.
I think the other thing, just to highlight, I think all these graphs are really good, and we talked about an earlier show. AI leader needs to have good visuals to help executives and board members understand how radically fast changing the power structure is in the global things, and there's a lot of charts that do that here.
Yep.
Yeah, and people stay away from necessarily using these models, but these models are available through Microsoft and the like, and AWS. So and they can provide a real cost advantage.
Well,
So
and if you're not using
I'm sorry.
proprietary stuff, you can use them now. I mean, I still use DeepSeek for research.
Exactly.
And if it's just general research and I'm not in proprietary data, it's fantastic. As is Manus.
Yeah, so people are not necessarily aware, and that's why, from that perspective, even we should mark it as essential. So essential it is. Let's proceed to the next one. Ankash, please.
Yes. The next one talks about Hollow One, which is a new family of GUI automation VLMs powering GUI agent server edge.
Right. I didn't know about the H company, and I looked them up. And this is a European company in Paris, founded by DeepSeek, or I'm sorry, DeepMind folks. Initially, they came out of Stealth in 24, and their whole effort is on autonomous agents to automate complex workflows, digital workflows. So this is just, they have three sets of products that are very fascinating, and this one is an open source. So they're open sourcing it. What did you think about this, Amanda?
Yeah, I think it's sort of another group of models, technology. And again, I said this before. Whenever we start looking GitHub ish, even though this one's on Hugging Face, I don't know how often the leader themselves really wants to dig into stuff that's presented in this way, even though there is information presented as well. So for me, yes, it's speaking about sort of production ready architecture, things like this. But it's focused again really on the agent side of things. And again, I'm still not sold that all of the leaders are ready to start building these kind of workflows within the organizations. I think some of them are kind of lying to themselves and jumping on this bandwagon. So for me, this is optional.
Okay, Alden, what did you think?
Yeah, I would mark it as optional too. To be honest, I really didn't understand what the killer app here is, and you know,
Okay.
why can't
Maybe let me try to make a case for important. So this is the application to essentially use the web as a human would. So it's a competition with OpenAI Operator and Project Mariner, and but it is open source now, and you could essentially use the web as you are using it, and as you are scrolling, clicking, putting the data together, assessing it, they're automating or providing you the tool to actually get it done much faster, and then automate it. So from my perspective, that's what the killer app is, Alden. I read into it, so I was on an important side, even though I grant Amanda that it is in this presentation is not very appealing for a AI leader. So that's where I was. Ankash, what did you think?
So Luda, I think it's an emerging area. So browser-based automation. So you mentioned the computer use agent from, operator agent from OpenAI, and there are few new browser agents. So there's one from Opera. There is one called Dia. So a lot of these web browsing agents are coming, and I believe it will be a very important area going forward, as most of the work that we do as part of the WINS work, it's on the internet, it's browser enabled. So browser automation can be a very important sort of area going forward.
Yeah, that's where I am. Paul, break the tie here, please.
I'm with Alden. Optional.
Optional,
Yeah,
because it's not yet pronounced.
correct.
yeah?
Still early. Yeah. I mean,
And
there's everyday miracles on all these different vectors.
Luda, and just to be clear, the idea of web browsing agents is insanely important. I'm working on a project right now with that. But is this relevant to that? Is this the killer app in that? That is the question that would make this optional.
Well,
Alden, you can use that right now. I had applied for access and I have got access to their new agent that they have released, browser-based agent. So
Oh,
this is in use right now.
okay.
Yeah. Guys, with all due respect, we're going important on this because you're right, Alden. This is the killer app going forward, and the number of capabilities are increasing. And this is an open source; you can play with it right now. So important it is. Let's proceed.
The next one comes from VentureBeat, and it talks about how S&P is using deep web scraping, ensemble learning, and Snowflake architecture to collect 5x more data on SMEs.
Yeah, so this is a use case of how S&P they need data about SMEs, which is not published, not and it's usually very much buried. SMEs do not disclose it, so they talk about their journey of how they deeply go into the web, pull out whatever data is available on websites, clean it again, have a lot of algorithms to make sense out of that data, then put it into Snowflake and create the application that they call a risk gauge that to assess the risk propensity, I guess, of an SME and share it with their customers. I found this interesting with a lot of discussions about what needed to be done to get that application together. So, but I think it's an optional case because it's just very specific to this application. What did you think about this, Alden?
Yeah, this would be an optional, and for people who are already in the S&P 500 or SMEs that are in the S&P 5000, say, it could be important. The concept is important, though. To give you an example, we nowadays do not go on a sales call without doing a full analysis like this using Manus, and that has tremendously raised the value of our sales calls and the effects. So somebody like SNP just doing, basically they are doing the same thing that Manus does. Like, you give Manus the right prompt and it'll go and do an analysis and search the right places and give you a deep research report. So uh, they're just doing it at scale and popping it into a database.
Good insight, thank you. But you would still optional.
Yeah, I would
Okay.
mark this as optional.
Okay. Okay. Amanda?
Yeah, this one's a little bit tough for me because I was thinking optional, but then just the whole web scraping aspect and about how it's starting to automate some of this process to take away from humans. I mean, that's a little bit interesting, but I don't know. I think I'm still optional.
Okay. Ankaj, anything to highlight here that you saw in this article?
I think optional, Luda. I was between important and optional. It can be important because it covers a lot of manual steps, like they have mentioned earlier, the 5 steps that they have mentioned.
Yep.
But we have discussed a lot of such cases with the AWS case studies that we have seen before, so maybe optional.
Optional it is then. Paul, optional, okay?
Yeah, and part of it, because this is all about capability. We know this can suck up a lot of stuff. What they don't really talk about is how much better all this extra volume data actually is. Am I really getting an order of magnitude better refinement on risk analysis of these SMEs? It is really hard. Uh, 10 years ago, I was in a company, we were looking for a lot of these stuff here. So you can get a lot more metadata on the SMEs, but do you really get enough signal out of it to move your risk analysis? So that's missing. So for that reason, optional.
They didn't discuss it, correct, but I think they wouldn't open it up into it's the base that they're creating, and it will become better. I think this is an important side.
Well, and if you turn around, if they aren't doing this, shame on them.
Exactly.
This intergalactic vacuum out there for data. Why aren't you using it to
Yeah.
get more data?
Exactly. Okay. All right. Optional it is. Let's proceed to the next one, Ankaj.
One comes from A16Z, and it talks about faster, smarter, and cheaper market research with AI.
Yeah, I gave it to you because you are very deeply into it. So please review this article.
Sure, Luda. Luda, I was between important and essential for this one. Market research is one of the areas which is essential for all the firms around, and it has been manual labor kind of a work for so long. And now that Gen AI is improving this through all these tools that A16Z have mentioned, and it also gives a new paradigm for market research. So I think we are somewhere here right now, AI native market research. A lot of the work that is being done right now, and the simulation bit is still going on, but still, I would say, a bit futuristic. Or not, I haven't seen a lot of examples of this being done in the market. So I think it provides a good perspective to any leader to understand what's new from a Gen AI perspective in market research.
Okay. What did you think about this, Alton?
Yeah, I would mark this as like important, maybe somewhere between optional and important. I like these A16Z reports because they sort of codify the state of the industry. But market research is going the same way as, like, say, copywriting from 2 years ago. Uh, you know, previously it was extremely difficult to do it, and now it is almost becoming commoditized. Like,
Okay, so your rating is important, but maybe actually optional. Important? You say important?
yeah, I'm split between those two.
Okay, Amanda, what did you think?
Yeah, I think this one's important because again, for me it's a timing factor, and I think Ankash touched on this a little bit. I mean, this is something that could take companies, whoever was responsible for this within your company for doing the market research, it could take, I mean, forever to complete, because you have to figure out what companies to look at. Then you have to dig in them individually. Then you have to build up all, sort of this organized data that you can present on this landscape and things like this. So there's it's a process, right? So I think it's interesting just to note, if nothing else, if you've kind of been sleeping, in the background and didn't know that this is going on, to note that, again, this is starting to become pretty automated of a process. And it's interesting in the timing factor that you can do this, I mean, so quickly.
Yeah.
Is interesting. But again, to me, this didn't happen yesterday. This is something that's been happening. So I'm important. I'll land on.
Yeah, I think for me, always the landscape with which startups are going at which segment of this process is very useful. So if you're looking for a particular angle in that space, you can find it looking at the startups. Paul, we're going important. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's essential for all our folks at GA Insights. I mean, this is part of our business here. I think most leaders, this is important here. I think this is another really good indication of how we've had a knowledge process that was very guild-like. Market research, deep domain knowledge at Moderna or Fidelity. We have to get these super high-paid knowledge workers here, and they are the only ones that can really vet and do high-quality reports. And as we see, AI is really good at the cognitive task here, and more that's getting automated here. So important.
Okay, important it is. I forgot to state that the articles that we are reviewing today are on our website, gaiinsights.com/articles. So as we're proceeding, please let us know. There are quite a bit of listeners today, so please let us know what you think and whether you agree, disagree with what we're saying. Let's proceed to the next one.
And like it, subscribe and like
Yeah.
at YouTube.
Yes, that's right. Thanks, Paul. Okay, next one, Ankash, please.
The next one comes from OpenAI, and it talks about selecting a model based on Stripe conversion. It provides practical evals for startups.
Yeah, this is one of the OpenAI cookbooks, so to speak. They have been putting these out with the users and how the users are and the users are telling us of what they've done. What did you think about this, Alden?
Yeah, I would mark this as optional, though pretty interesting way of, doing an A/B test here. Uh, Basically, what this does is instead of doing like, vague A/B testing and say comparing two models based on these benchmarks or questions, they said, let's measure what really matters, which is revenue, right? So they did an A/B test where they would show one model versus another model and say how was revenue affected by this. Uh, this might be important for somebody who has just such tremendous volume that they cannot decide which model to use. Like, should we use like O4 Mini or should we use like, right? And by using the revenue as the measurement metric, uh, you can make it like real. So good use of it. Um, you know, I'm not. Uh, People will need to have like real heavy volume to be able to make this
Yeah.
decision.
Yeah, there's at least 1,000 users that you need to have to try anything like this.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, optional from Alden. What did you think, Amanda?
Yeah, so one thing I liked about this, typically if it starts getting a little technical, I'm completely optional for the leader because I don't know how technical they are and I don't want them to be like spinning their wheels. Even though, yes, they could put it into ChatGPT or whatever. But anyway, when it starts getting like that, I'm like, it's definitely optional. But I think it's in a very easily digestible how do I want to say, layout for the leader, whatever like that. So for that being said, I think it's a nice little refresher for them on different technical aspects, right? Like different tests and things like this. So for that, I kind of liked it as important for them to get a quick refresher on something. But other than that, I could also go totally optional because again, this is not something I could see them digging into for fun.
Okay, thanks, Amanda. Ankash, we're going optional. Paul, anything to
And
add?
with optional, Flora.
Okay,
Optional.
optional, guys. All right, let's proceed to the next one, Ankash.
Okay, the next one comes from Dwarkesh's podcast, and he talks about why he has slightly longer timelines than some of his guests.
Right, and so this is a discussion about when AGI is coming in and when AI will fully automate what humans are doing and behave as humans. So he essentially talks about the major barrier that we haven't solved to get there quickly, and that is continual learning. And we've reviewed a number of innovations to get the memory together and make it so that Gen AI models use the memory to advance. But the point is, actually, he articulates the continual learning point very nicely. So for just that, I was thinking that is important from so I was between optional and important. But at the end of the day, there's really nothing new in this article other than intellectual curiosity. So I ended up putting it as optional. Alden, what
Yeah.
did
Yeah. I would mark it as optional too. Lot of good intellectual curiosity, but to be honest, I haven't like dug into it deep enough to make a decision on whether there is something radical here.
No, I don't. So he's essentially saying continuous learning, and even if we equip the models with all the memory, it's still not enough. They need to kind of step back and be able to learn as humans learn, and that's yet another step. So but he does put the AGI and certain tasks in very short-term vicinity in some sense, 5-7 years. So he's actually kind of contradicting himself. What did you think about this, Paul?
I despise this topic. I stand firmly that any millisecond that AI leaders spending thinking about this, they're wasting a time and not being responsible executive here. We are already in a world where everyone believes that AI is going to do 95% of what people do cognitively. We have thousands of computer science graduates who are not getting jobs, who used to get jobs for $120,000, $150,000 a year here. We are living in a radical change. What do I do with this? Are you saying this change isn't happening? All we're saying is a change might be. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox here, but I don't think this is even worth us reviewing. So triple optional, and I'll yield.
Paul,
Okay.
taking it to the house.
All right. Well, after this passionate plea from Paul, I want to hear from Ankash and why he selected this article. Ankash, I'm putting you on the spot. Sorry.
Oh, there we get some spice going.
There's no
Go
worries.
down.
Yes. So, Luda, I listened to this podcast that he refers to here with Anthropic researchers, Trenton and Sholto. And it was really an interesting conversation in terms of where we are going with computer use and all the latest stuff that we have from both Anthropic and OpenAI. While the topic of discussion of this particular blog is AGI, but I included it because it discusses a lot of other things, right? So why he's saying that we are not there with AGI, because a lot of the components which are useful for other tasks as well, right? So he mentions that, okay, for an AI agent to be successful, or let's say successful on an evaluation, we need to have that agent work for 2 hours and then see the output. And then he talks about the multimodal stuff, how we have trained LLMs on textual stuff, but then coding and all the multimodal stuff, that's still lagging behind. So I think he raises a good number of points about the state of Gen AI or state of LLMs right now. So that's why I included this in. But yeah, the overall topic about AGI, I think I'm with Paul on that. But yeah, article discusses a lot of other things if we sort of go into details.
Wonderful. Okay. So optional it is. Let's proceed to the last one.
And
Please.
Luda, last thing, I'll finish my soapbox here. I think part of this is just debating the strength of a hurricane. Oh my gosh, is a hurricane stage 4 or stage 5? It doesn't matter. It's coming through and it's ripping Florida or Texas apart here. So that's what's relevant, and that's what we need to adapt to.
Yeah, no, that you're absolutely right. Okay, let's go to the next one. Ankash, please.
The last one that we have for today comes from OpenAI and talks about memory in ChatGPT.
Yeah. Apropos to the last article, what did you think about this, Amanda?
Yeah, so I don't think this is new at all. I've noticed this for a little while now, and I think this particular tweet, at least what came up on my screen, was from April. So it's definitely something that's been out. But it's interesting because I didn't realize the depth of it until a couple days ago, and I actually brought it up in the course of one of the courses I'm facilitating. And I said, wow, I really noticed. I asked a random question and it like rattled off all these things from chats that I had not recently. So I knew that it has been doing this, and it was a clear example. So I think it's interesting just to note, but very optional for me.
Okay. Proposal for optional. Any disagreement? Alden, Paul?
Yeah,
Ankash?
this is a very important feature, but it seems to be from April, and it's now like, it works really well. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Every chat GPT chat of mine used to start with like, "Hello, I am Alden. This is what custom GPT does," and that was very painful before. And now my chat GPT knows like literally everybody in my company, what they do, what their charter is, and the conversations have become like really, really intense.
Yeah. Okay.
I think, Luda, one thing what's really important about this, though, is this shows a continued advancement of the chat application. I continue to find a lot of people think that the chat is just a box that makes a call to the large language model and come back. And this shows all that value that's being added around it from GPT and custom instructions and everything else here, and why I certainly continue to see OpenAI's chatbot way ahead of things like Copilot and others out there. So it is really important for at least the AI leader to understand the chatbot application for employee productivity is way more than just a window that's making a call into a large language model and coming back.
Yeah, but I still think it's optional because
Correct.
if you're using ChatGPT on a daily basis, you kind of already know that. So that's why I thought it was optional.
But
Okay,
I won't be-
optional it is. Yeah, go ahead.
I won't be surprised if what comes next is where they initiate the conversation based on the memory.
Correct.
Right.
Right,
What I would love to do is like open ChatGPT and ChatGPT says, "Hey Alden, let's talk about how to improve your marketing now."
Yeah.
But maybe you have agents spawn to actually think about it and then wake you up with ideas on how to do that.
Yeah.
That would be cool.
And all we're already seeing glimpses of that. Instead of being pure execution, and now it says, "Here's your report. Would you like in a PDF? Would you like a C?" So it's already starting to be anticipatory there. And I think where you're going is you open up and it's anticipatory of all the stuff. You've got 4 meetings today. I've already ran your madness on your things here. Don't forget your mother's birthday.
It's very clear it will. Okay, we're on time here. So Ankash, if you could give us the scorecard for today. So we have 1 essential, 2 optional, 2 importance, and the rest are optional. Good day. Thank you, listeners, for listening and not participating next time. We really appreciate it. Thanks, Alden, for joining. Great discussion. We'll see you tomorrow.
Great. Thanks for having me.
Keep learning, everyone.